Someone in your life is trying to control you. Maybe you already sense it. Maybe you have felt it for a while. That subtle, uncomfortable feeling that certain conversations leave you agreeing to things you never intended to agree to. That certain people consistently make you feel guilty for things that were never your fault. That somehow, no matter how the interaction begins, you always end up in a position you did not choose and did not want. Or maybe it is more invisible than that. Maybe the manipulation in your life is so well disguised, so wrapped in the language of love, of concern, of friendship, of loyalty, that you have not even named it yet. You just know that certain relationships leave you feeling smaller than when you arrived. That certain conversations drain you in ways you cannot fully explain. That there are people in your world who always seem to get what they want from you, while you walk away wondering how it happened again. Manipulation is everywhere. In relationships, in workplaces, in families, in politics, in advertising, in every corner of human interaction, where one person wants something from another and is willing to use psychological pressure rather than honest communication to get it. And the reason it works, the reason it keeps working over and over on intelligent, well-meaning people, is not because those people are weak. It is because they have not been given the tools to recognize it and resist it. Until now. 2,000 years ago, the Stoic philosophers developed a complete philosophy of the inner life, a set of principles so psychologically sophisticated, so deeply rooted in self-knowledge and clarity, that a person who genuinely lives by them becomes, for all practical purposes, immune to manipulation. Not hardened, not cold, not suspicious of everyone around them, but grounded, clear, unshakable, possessed of an inner stability so solid that the usual levers of manipulation, guilt, fear, flattery, urgency, shame, simply find no purchase. Today, we are going to walk through 10 of those principles, 10 specific, practical, Stoic tools that will transform you from someone who can be moved, pressured, and controlled by others into someone who operates from such a place of inner clarity and strength that manipulation simply stops working on you. Stay with me all the way through, because each principle builds on the last, and by the time we reach number 10, you will have a complete, unbreakable inner framework rooted in the wisdom of Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, and Seneca that will protect you for the rest of your life. Let us begin. Principle 1. Know exactly what you value and never apologize for it. The first and most fundamental reason people are successfully manipulated is this: they do not know what they actually value, not what they think they should value, not what their family told them to value, not what their culture rewards, what they, as individuals, at their core, genuinely, deeply value. And because they have not done the work of identifying this clearly, they are permanently vulnerable to anyone who comes along and tells them what they should want, what they should feel, what they should do. Marcus Aurelius understood that clarity of values was the bedrock of an unmanipulable life. He wrote in his Meditations for himself alone as a private reminder, "If it is not right, do not do it. If it is not true, do not say it." Simple, absolute, non-negotiable. This is a man who ruled the most powerful empire in the world and was surrounded by advisors, generals, senators, and courtiers who each had their own agenda, their own pressure, their own version of what Marcus should do. And his protection against all of it was this: he knew what he valued, he knew what was right, and he had committed, privately and completely, to acting from that knowledge, regardless of external pressure. Here is how manipulation typically begins. The manipulator identifies something you care about: your reputation, your relationships, your fear of conflict, your desire to be liked, and then uses that thing as a lever. They say, in some form, if you really valued X, you would do Y. And if you are not crystal clear on what you actually value, you are immediately on the defensive. You are spending your energy justifying yourself rather than simply acting from your values. But when you know your values clearly, when you have sat with them, examined them, tested them against difficulty, and committed to them consciously, that lever disappears. You are not defending yourself. You are simply living. And no argument, however clever, however emotionally loaded, can move you from a position you have genuinely and consciously chosen. The practice: take time, real time, not just 5 minutes, to write down what you actually value. Not the aspirational list, the real one. What do you consistently choose when it costs you something? What do you refuse to compromise even when compromise would make your life easier? Those are your real values. Know them, name them, and then, as Marcus Aurelius would say, live them, without apology, without negotiation, without the permission of anyone who does not share them. Principle 2. Master the dichotomy of control, and mean it. Epictetus opened his most famous work, the Enchiridion, with a single principle so powerful that everything else in Stoic philosophy flows from it. He wrote, "Some things are in our control and others are not. Things in our control are opinion, pursuit, desire, aversion, and in one word, whatever are our own actions. Things not in our control are body, reputation, command, and in one word, whatever are not our own actions." This is the dichotomy of control, and for the person who truly internalizes it, not as a philosophical concept, but as a lived reality, it makes manipulation dramatically harder to execute. Here is why. The vast majority of manipulation techniques work by threatening something outside your control: your reputation, what other people think of you, whether someone will stay or leave, whether you will be included or excluded, whether you will be liked or judged. If you do not do this, people will think badly of you. If you say no, I will be upset and our relationship will suffer. Everyone else thinks you are wrong. Why are you being so difficult? Each of these is a threat directed at something outside your control. And if you believe, truly believe, that things outside your control are not yours to begin with, then the threat has nothing to threaten. The lever pushes against a door that has no handle. Epictetus was enslaved, physically owned by another human being, and yet he was, by every philosophical measure, one of the freest people who ever lived. Because he had understood, in a way forced upon him by the most extreme circumstances, that his inner life, his judgments, his values, his responses, these were his, completely, inviolably, and no owner, no emperor, no external force of any kind could touch them without his permission. When you genuinely live by the dichotomy of control, the manipulator's toolkit becomes almost entirely useless. They can threaten your reputation. You do not control your reputation, only your character. They can threaten their own emotional response. You do not control how others feel, only how you act. They can threaten exclusion or disapproval. You do not control others' choices, only your own. What remains? What is left for the manipulator to work with? Almost nothing. Because the only things truly in your control, your thoughts, your choices, your values, your responses, are precisely the things that manipulation cannot reach once you have decided they belong entirely to you. Principle 3. Recognize false urgency and refuse to be rushed. Seneca wrote one of the most important lines about time and decision-making in all of philosophical literature. He wrote, "Omnia Lucili aliena sunt, tempus tantum nostrum est." Everything, Lucilius, belongs to others. Time alone is ours. And then in his essay on the shortness of life, he observed something devastating about how most people relate to their time. They give it away. They let other people's urgency become their urgency. They allow the pressing needs of others to override their own deliberate pace. And in doing so, they make themselves permanently available for manipulation. Because urgency is one of the manipulator's most reliable tools. I need an answer now. This cannot wait. If you do not decide immediately, the opportunity will be gone. I need to know right now if you are with me or against me. The urgency is almost always false, or at the very least, it is the manipulator's urgency, not yours. The deadline is theirs, the pressure is theirs, and by accepting it as your own, you surrender the most important resource you have for making good decisions: time. Seneca wrote, "Dum differtur vita transcurrit." While we are postponing, life speeds by. But the flip side of this insight, the side that protects you from manipulation, is equally true. While you are rushing, clarity flies by. The person who is rushed into a decision is a person who has been deprived of the time needed to think clearly. And the person who cannot think clearly is a person who can be moved. The Stoic response to false urgency is simple and devastatingly effective. It is the pause, the deliberate, calm, unhurried pause. I will think about this and give you my answer. I do not make decisions under pressure. If this requires an immediate answer, my answer is no. That final response is particularly powerful. A genuine offer, a genuine opportunity, a genuine request. These can withstand a period of thought. Only a manipulation needs an immediate answer. Because the manipulation loses its power the moment you step back far enough to see it clearly. Take your time. Always. This is not rudeness. This is not passivity. This is the most fundamental act of self-respect and self-protection available to you. Your time is yours. Your decision-making pace is yours. And anyone who cannot tolerate that is telling you something important about their intentions. Principle 4. Understand that guilt is not. This principle is perhaps the most immediately liberating one on this entire list. And it is the one that most people have never heard stated clearly. Guilt is not evidence of wrongdoing. Guilt is a feeling. It is a powerful feeling, one of the most powerful in the human emotional repertoire. But it is a feeling that can be induced deliberately, strategically, and entirely without justification by a skilled manipulator. And the person who has not learned to distinguish between genuine guilt, the kind that arises naturally from actually having done something wrong, and manufactured guilt, the kind that is installed in you by someone who wants something from you, that person is perpetually vulnerable to one of the most common and effective manipulation strategies in existence: guilt tripping. We all know what it looks like. After everything I have done for you, I thought you cared about me. I cannot believe you would do this to me. Fine, do not worry about me, I will be fine. Each of these statements is designed to produce guilt, to make you feel that you have caused harm, and then to leverage that guilt into compliance. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The first rule is to keep an untroubled spirit." And elsewhere, "Do not indulge in dreams of what you have not, but count up the chief blessings you do have." An untroubled spirit. This is the target. And the untroubled spirit is not one that never feels anything. It is one that does not allow feelings, including guilt, to bypass reason. That does not accept an emotion as a verdict without examining the evidence. Here is the Stoic examination you must perform every time guilt arises. Did I actually do something wrong? Did I violate my values? Did I cause genuine harm through deliberate cruelty or negligence? If the answer is yes, good. Feel the guilt, use it, correct the behavior, apologize sincerely, do better. But if the answer is no, if the guilt arose because you said no to someone, because you chose your own needs for once, because you refused to do something that violated your values, then the guilt is manufactured. It is a tool being used against you. And the appropriate response is not compliance. It is clarity. You are not responsible for managing other people's emotional responses to your reasonable choices. You are responsible for your own character and your own actions. Guilt that arises from simply being human, from having limits, from exercising your right to choose, that is not a signal to comply. It is a signal that someone is attempting to manipulate you. Principle 5. See people as they are, not as you wish they were. Marcus Aurelius gave himself one of the most bracing pieces of advice in his entire journal. He wrote, as a morning preparation, "When you wake up in the morning, tell yourself, the people I deal with today will be meddling, ungrateful, arrogant, dishonest, jealous, and surly." At first glance, this sounds like cynicism, like the worldview of a bitter person who has given up on humanity. But read more carefully, Marcus does not end there. He continues, "But I have seen the beauty of good and the ugliness of evil, and I recognize that the wrongdoer has a nature related to my own." This is not cynicism. This is clear-eyed compassion. Marcus Aurelius is doing two things simultaneously. He is preparing himself to encounter human beings as they actually are, with all their flaws, their self-interest, their occasional dishonesty and manipulation, so that none of it catches him off guard. And he is maintaining genuine compassion for them, recognizing their shared humanity without letting that compassion become naivety, because naivety is the manipulator's favorite environment. The person who consistently assumes the best about everyone, who cannot conceive that someone they love or respect might be acting from self-interest rather than genuine care, that person is perpetually exposed. They keep giving trust that has not been earned. They keep extending benefit of the doubt to people who have already demonstrated they will exploit it. They keep being surprised by behavior that, looked at clearly and honestly, is entirely predictable. The Stoic alternative is not to become suspicious of everyone. It is to see people accurately, to pay attention not just to what they say, but to what they consistently do, to notice patterns, to update your assessment of a person based on evidence rather than hope. Here is the principle in practical terms: watch behavior over time. People who consistently say one thing and do another are showing you who they are. People who are consistently kind to you but cruel to those who cannot benefit them are showing you who they are. People who only appear when they need something and disappear when you need something, they are showing you who they are. See it, accept it. Do not perform naivety because the truth is uncomfortable. The clearer your vision of the people in your life, their genuine character, their real motivations, the less leverage any manipulator has. Because manipulation requires the manipulator to be seen as something other than what they are, and the person who sees clearly does not give them that gift. Principle 6. Build your identity on character, not approval. Epictetus wrote, "No man is free who is not master of himself." And one of the most important dimensions of that mastery is freedom from the need for approval. Because the need for approval is the single most exploitable vulnerability a human being can have. If you need to be liked, if your sense of self-worth is contingent on other people's positive regard, then anyone who can credibly threaten to withdraw that regard has enormous power over you. I am so disappointed in you. I thought you were better than this. Everyone thinks you are wrong. Do you really want to be the kind of person who does that? Each of these statements weaponizes the approval mechanism. They work by suggesting that your identity, your worth, your place in the community, your right to see yourself as a good person, is under threat. And if your identity genuinely depends on their approval, the threat is real, and you will do almost anything to neutralize it. But here is what Epictetus taught from the philosophical heights of his very difficult life. Your worth is not located in other people's assessment of you. It is located in your character, in the quality of your choices, in the consistency between your values and your actions, in who you are when no one is watching and nothing is at stake. When your identity is built on character rather than approval, the approval withdrawal threat loses all its power. I am disappointed in you. And the question is not whether they are disappointed. The question is whether you acted rightly. If you did, their disappointment is their business, not yours. If you did not, their disappointment is irrelevant. The only thing that matters is correcting the error. Epictetus taught his students to ask in every situation, "What does my own reason tell me is right here?" Not "What does this person want?" Not "What will make this person like me?" What does my own clear, honest, examined reason say is right? And then to act on that, regardless of whether it produces approval or disapproval. This is not arrogance. Arrogance says, "My judgment is always right, and I do not need to consider others." Stoic self-respect says, "I have done the work of examining my values and reasoning carefully, and I will act from that examination without requiring external validation." The first is closed. The second is genuinely confident, open to correction, but not dependent on approval. Build your identity on your character, and watch the approval withdrawal lever dissolve. Principle 7. Practice voluntary discomfort, so threats lose their power. This principle is the one that most surprises people, but it may be the most practically powerful on the list. Seneca wrote to Lucilius, "Set aside a certain number of days, during which you shall be content with the scantiest and cheapest fare, with coarse and rough dress, saying to yourself the while, 'Is this the condition that I feared?'" He was prescribing what modern psychologists call exposure therapy, the deliberate, voluntary confrontation with the things you fear in controlled doses so that they lose their grip on you. And he was prescribing it not as punishment or asceticism for its own sake, but as a preparation for freedom. Because here is the truth about threats. They only work on people who are afraid of what is being threatened. Tell a person who genuinely does not care about luxury that you will take away their comfortable lifestyle, and you have threatened them with nothing. Tell a person who has practiced and made peace with solitude that you will withdraw your company, and you have given them an afternoon to themselves. Manipulation depends on the existence of something you desperately want to keep or desperately want to avoid. The manipulator finds that thing, the comfort, the relationship, the status, the security, and uses it as a hostage. Comply, or the hostage suffers. The Stoic response is to voluntarily, regularly practice doing without the things that could be used as hostages. Not to eliminate all comfort or connection from your life, but to develop a genuine, tested relationship with discomfort so that it no longer terrifies you. Seneca practiced this regularly. He would voluntarily live simply for periods of time, eating plain food, wearing rough clothes, sleeping on a hard surface. Not because he believed comfort was wrong, but because he wanted to know, really know in his body and not just in his mind, that he could survive without it, that the loss of comfort would not break him. And here is what he found. Is this the condition that I feared? In almost every case, the answer was no. The anticipated suffering was far worse than the actual experience. The imagined threat was more powerful than the real one. And once he knew this, truly knew it, the threat lost its power entirely. Practice voluntary discomfort. Spend time in solitude so that the threat of exclusion does not terrify you. Practice saying no to small things so that the guilt of disappointing people becomes familiar and manageable. Practice living simply sometimes so that the threat of losing comfort does not override your judgment. In each case, you are doing the same thing, removing the hostage. And without a hostage, the manipulator has nothing. Principle 8. Never justify, never explain, never defend unless you choose to. Here is a pattern that plays out in manipulative interactions with remarkable consistency. You make a decision, a reasonable, considered, legitimate decision. The manipulator disagrees with it or is inconvenienced by it. They push back, they question it, they express disappointment or confusion or concern. And you, feeling the pressure of their disapproval, begin to explain yourself. And the moment you begin to explain yourself, something shifts, because the implicit message of an explanation, in that context is, I need you to understand and approve of my decision before I am comfortable standing by it. I am not yet confident that this decision is valid. I require your validation. And the manipulator hears that clearly, and they push harder. They respond to your explanation with more questions, more expressions of concern, more subtle suggestions that your reasoning is flawed or your motives are suspect. And you explain more, and they push more. And by the end of the conversation, you have been moved, step by step, through the mechanism of your own need to be understood, to a place very far from where you started. Epictetus taught, "Never say about anything, 'I have lost it,' but say, 'I have restored it.'" And Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." The strength in this context is the strength to decline the invitation to justify, to offer your decision, clearly, kindly once, and then to hold it, not defensively, not angrily, simply held. "I have decided not to do that. That does not work for me. I'm not going to be able to help with that." Full stop. No explanation appended unless you choose to add one. No justification offered to manage their emotional response. No defense mounted against their manufactured objections. This is not rudeness. You can deliver it with warmth, with kindness, with genuine care for the person you are speaking to. But the decision stands without requiring their approval. And when they push for an explanation, when they say, "But why?" in the tone that means, "Convince me this is acceptable and maybe I will let you have it," you have options. You can offer a brief, honest reason if you choose, but you are not obligated to. "Because it is not right for me" is a complete answer. "Because I have decided" is a complete answer. The completeness of your answer does not depend on whether it satisfies them. It depends on whether it is true. Principle 9, Amor Fati, love what is, so nothing can be taken from you. We have talked about Amor Fati before on this channel, the love of fate, the Stoic practice of not just accepting, but genuinely embracing everything that happens, including difficulty and loss. And here, in the context of manipulation, it takes on a specific and powerful meaning. The manipulator's ultimate weapon is the threat of loss. Loss of relationship, loss of status, loss of comfort, loss of opportunity, loss of love. Every sophisticated manipulation technique, at its root, is a version of this: comply, or you will lose something. And the person who has done the deep work of amor fati, who has sat with the reality of impermanence, who has genuinely made peace with the fact that nothing external is guaranteed, who has internalized the Stoic understanding that what is truly yours cannot be taken away, that person cannot be threatened with loss, because they have already let go of attachment to the thing being threatened. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Loss is nothing else but change, and change is nature's delight." Seneca wrote, "Omnia Lucili aliena sunt." Everything, Lucilius, belongs to others. The relationship, the status, the comfort, the opportunity, all of it is borrowed. All of it is temporary. All of it can be given and taken by forces entirely outside your control. And the person who has truly understood this, who lives from this understanding rather than just knowing it intellectually, is, in the deepest sense, free. This does not mean you do not value things. It does not mean relationships do not matter or that loss does not hurt. It means that your willingness to do what is right, to hold your values, to refuse manipulation, these are not contingent on the manipulator not carrying out their threat. You are not complying in order to avoid loss, and you are not refusing in order to be brave. You are refusing because it is right, and the consequence, whatever it is simply part of the territory of a life lived with integrity. When you genuinely arrive at this place, and it takes time and practice and probably some real loss along the way, the manipulator's most powerful weapon becomes completely ineffective. You cannot threaten someone with the loss of something they have already released. And the person who has released attachment to outcomes is not indifferent. They are free. Principle 10. Respond, never react. The ultimate protection. We arrive at the 10th and final principle, and it is in many ways the one that makes all the others operational. Because you can know all 9 of the preceding principles perfectly. You can understand your values, the dichotomy of control, false urgency, manufactured guilt, all of it, and still be manipulated if you react rather than respond. Epictetus taught what is perhaps the most psychologically sophisticated insight in all of ancient philosophy. Between the stimulus and the response, he said, there is a space, and in that space lives everything: your freedom, your character, your power, your dignity, your capacity to act from your principles rather than from your emotions. Manipulation is designed to close that space, to eliminate the gap between stimulus and response so completely that you are simply a reaction happening automatically, moved by guilt, by urgency, by fear, by flattery, without ever having had the chance to choose. The manipulator speaks with a tone designed to trigger your anxiety. They time their request for a moment when you are tired or emotionally vulnerable. They frame their demand so that any response other than compliance feels like aggression or selfishness. They are, in essence, engineering a situation in which your automatic response, the path of least emotional resistance, is the response they want. And the Stoic response is simply the pause. The pause is not weakness. The pause is not rudeness. The pause is the act of reclaiming the space between stimulus and response. Of saying to yourself, I will feel whatever I feel. I will notice the pressure. I will acknowledge the emotional pull. And then I will choose my response, deliberately, from my values, from my clarity, rather than simply following the emotional current wherever it wants to take me. Marcus Aurelius practiced this. He wrote for himself, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. That power, the power over your own mind, is exercised precisely in the pause. In the moment when the emotional pressure is greatest and the manipulator is counting on your reaction, that is where the Stoic plants their feet. Take a breath, take a walk if you need to. Say, I will come back to you on this. Do whatever it takes to preserve the space, because in that space, your values speak louder than their pressure. Your clarity is stronger than their manipulation. Your character is more powerful than their agenda. Respond, never react. And in that discipline, practiced every day, in small interactions and large ones, in comfortable situations, and in the most pressured moments of your life, you will become, gradually and then completely, a person that manipulation simply cannot reach. Let us bring all 10 principles together. Know your values clearly, so no one can define them for you. Master the dichotomy of control. So threats directed at what you cannot control have nothing to threaten. Recognize false urgency, so you are never rushed into a decision that serves someone else's agenda. Understand that guilt is not evidence, so manufactured guilt cannot drive you into compliance. See people as they are, so manipulation has nowhere to hide. Build your identity on character, not approval, so approval withdrawal loses its power. Practice voluntary discomfort, so the things manipulators use as hostages have already been released. Never justify unless you choose to, so your decisions do not require their validation to stand. Practice amor fati, so the threat of loss cannot override your values, and respond, never react, so the space between pressure and action always belongs to you. This is the Stoic shield, not a wall that keeps people out, not a coldness that prevents connection, but an inner structure built from daily practice, from genuine self-knowledge, from the accumulated wisdom of 3 of the greatest minds in human history, that makes you, in the deepest and truest sense, impossible to manipulate. Marcus Aurelius built this shield while ruling an empire, Epictetus built it while enslaved. Seneca built it while navigating one of the most dangerous political environments in history. Each of them faced manipulation of the most sophisticated and high-stakes kind, and each of them emerged, not unscathed, but unbroken, not untested, but unwavering. You have the same tools available to you that they had, the same principles, the same capacity for the inner work, the same ability to choose, day after day, the kind of person you are going to be when the pressure is greatest. Choose the Stoic. Choose the unmanipulable life. Which of these 10 principles hit you hardest today? Which one do you most need to work on? Drop it in the comments. I read every single one, and I want to know where you are in this work. If this video gave you real tools you are going to use this week, share it. Someone in your life needs this right now. Someone who is being manipulated and does not yet have the language or the framework to see it clearly. Send it to them. Subscribe and turn on notifications. Every week we go deep into the Stoic principles that build real, lasting, unshakable inner strength. No shortcuts, no fluff, just ancient wisdom that actually works in a modern life. Until next time, know your values, hold your ground, and stay unshakable.